I love sponge filters more than I love any other filter. The ultimate set it and forget it solution. They're dirty when you need them. They're clean when you need it. Second only to maybe having enough gravel layers and plants that your body of water naturally filters like it does out in the wild. The only drawback on sponges is the fact that they will seize up, stop producing bubbles, mulm or sludge will get caught in that airline or the air tubing. And I found a solution for that. And that's what this video is about. And the answer to all of our problems is a plastic syringe. You can get these off of Amazon, a pack of 4, or you can find them anywhere but a fish store. And I'm using 35 millimeters. You can go lower or higher. This is a lure lock syringe, which describes the little screw connection at the tip of the syringe, which makes different syringe points interchangeable for what you need. But we're just going to use the default. Nothing's going to be on it because the airline fits perfectly around the lure lock.
The filter is clogged. I know it's this line that it's hooked up to. I'm gonna pull this out. Hopefully it doesn't drip water anywhere. I've got a syringe here. Has a screw top that happens to fit. Fill it up with water. Let it rip like a Beyblade. There we go. Look at that. So you can't really see what's going on. Looks like a cloud. But essentially, we blew the water in reverse, pressurized, and it declogged it. Can we do this? Oh, there we go. There we go. Now we were clogged up, just a few bubbles coming through there. And now it is clear. We only had to play with the lines right out here. And that's how you blow out a line, baby. Sponge filters, they're the best. Sometimes when you get like this, you could do a squeeze clean and you know, that'll be your issue. What I found lately is the lines are clogged. Yeah, baby. Woo!
In the past, I've been tempted to blame the air pump. For some reason, not enough air coming through there. But what's happening usually is not an air pressure problem. It's the airlines and the tubing. Anywhere where there's space for air to go through, that's somewhere where some pond sludge can build. Now, if you use this syringe, you can declog without even getting your hands wet. And I haven't seen this technique expressed on YouTube yet. So when your sponge filter needs maintenance, there's going to be a lot of things that go on with the tank over time that are going to indicate maybe that there's not enough air going through the sponge. That's going to lead to the whole tank not filtering correctly. If your water is cloudy and you look up and you have just a trickle of bubbles, you could assume that's a mechanical filter issue with the sponge. So the whole premise of this solution is easy squeezy lemon peasy. And this works for every sponge. You have your coarse grain sponge, you have your fine grain sponge, you have the sponges with the little suction cups and they have kind of the little double barrel thing going on. This works for all of them. If you've modified your sponge with an air stone, I've also seen this work wonders. So in my case, my gang valves lead to each one of the sponge filters and I place these valves left to right. So anytime an air source presents itself when I'm looking at it, it's going to correspond with which sponge filter it leads to.
Okay, here's another one that's in need of serious help. Fill up the syringe. You can close the valve to make sure that's the one. 1, 2, 3. That's it, baby. I'm gonna unplug it. There we go. That's the power of Pond-Sol, baby. Woo!
And again, I think any syringe would work. And we're going to basically fill this syringe with water and just one time, 30 millimeters of water right down the hatch. We're going to pressure squeeze it with a syringe. We're going to shoot pressurized water through the airline. We're going to clear any gunk that's in there. You'll see a big old mulm cloud at 24 hours and the tank is going to look better than it has in weeks. And all of these airlines would be much neater if I knew this trick sooner. In the past, I fell victim to just thinking, oh, this is a cheap old Tetra air pump. So I immediately blamed the pump. Of course, this is a relatively new discovery for me. Way back when I was in my early 20s, I went to a party once in college, and there was a Halloween-themed party in which they had Jello shots inside syringes like these, and you would just give yourself a shot right there in the mouth, keep on going. And so every time I use these, I do think of Jello. There's many ways you can get to a sponge filter. Really, it's up to you where you would like to inject the water as far as the air tubing. I mean, you can pull it directly off of your air pump. You can find a point where you're a little more comfortable down the airline and just cut it in half and put a check valve in there. Make sure the check valve is above the water line. In my case, I'm using gang valves. Where you do this is going to change fish room to fish room. This is going to give you access to the sponge filter to run maintenance. It's going to give you a little hatch to get your cleaning work done anytime you see this sponge filter seizing up. Of course, when you're grabbing an airline right out of the air pump and you're shooting water through it, that does create a back siphon pressure. Once you stop pushing water through here, water is going to come back out at you through the tubing. The same set of rules that enables you to siphon clean a tank. Now you can hold it up higher, but I recommend moving quick and putting that line back into the air source, whether that's the gang valve or the air pump itself. It takes a few seconds once you connect it back to the air, but that pump will push the water back into the fish tank. For me, this is revolutionary. It saves tons of time. It seems like I'm always actually clearing these air lines that are full of gunk, as opposed to cleaning the actual sponge that's in the water that requires a squeeze. I should also go ahead and recommend to make sure that where you inject the water, the tubing, the airline goes directly to the filter that you're pressure cleaning, that you're shooting the water through. I've never tried running this syringe water directly through a gang valve or a check valve. I don't think it'd be as effective. In fact, these modded sponge filters, a lot of times the air stone will be the culprit, and running pressurized water will relieve some points in that air stone. So you will see some change, and it is worth doing for a quick fix. But it's a little more temporary, it seems, because that air stone needs to be replaced or specifically cleaned.
We got one flowing true. And then we have the Aquarium Co-op sponge. The old school one, I think they are a little bit different now. But this one is to the specs of a customized, modified, as per Aquarium Co-op on a video a few years ago. So they probably do something else. I feel like I've seen Corey kind of bring forward the old school under the gravel filter, giving that a try. The bubbles are very small, not like Old Faithful. And if you look up here, this is what we're playing with. Not sure if you can see it, we're in the dark, but we're just gonna pull the second one. And of course, when you pull it, you'll see the air has completely stopped. We're above the water line, so we actually don't have to rush to get the water back in. But let's try it. 35 millimeters, dechlorinated fish water. All right, plugging it back in.
At this point, I would rather no air stone inside my sponge filter and just do the big bubbles, because nitrate wise, I really don't see a difference. Sponge filters seem to require exactly two things for maintenance: a squeeze cleaning and then an airline clear. I used to say they required being pulled apart. You take the brittle airline that used to be soft and pliable, and now it's like hard and it doesn't bend anymore, and you replace that with fresh airline but I've noticed that I'm able to hang on to these brittle air lines a little bit longer with this syringe water clear. And when I say use the brittle tubing a little bit longer, I mean use it indefinitely. I've never taken them out and replaced them since I've been clearing with syringes. These sponge filters, without the syringe, seem to need to get tickled like every 7 days once the tank is really fully established with the bacteria colony. And for a myriad of reasons, I do not have time to tickle 31, 32 sponges a day, seeing how they're feeling that day, whether the pressure is just right or just wrong for them. This is just a process that I benefit from expediting very quickly. And as you can see, my solution before was to just add more tubing and move on. You know, what's liable to happen when I don't have this method, we can see already the beginnings of. It's a giant rat nest. Maybe one day I would have a tickle the sponge day where I would get to all 32 in one day. But we've got my Band-Aid on a bullet wound method. Pop another airline in there and make sure we have enough airflow. So that's what you see right now. These are sponge filters and airlines in which I don't trust to randomly just turn off one day. And one of the wildcard factors in that was clogged air tubes. Now it has gotten to the point where these have been working consistently enough. I do need to push them towards the back and move on to other things, but that's why it's all awry. If the previous sponge filter was giving me a hard time, I would give it a squeeze cleaning, and a lot of times I would put it back in there and the same problem would sit there because I didn't properly clear the tubing. In which case, you can see a second filter in there. And I'm not just trying to be extra nice to the fish. This is another Band-Aid on a bullet wound method. The sponge squeezing, you can always put off one more day, but if you look in there and there's no air getting into the tank, you've got a layer of duckweed or any other floating plant, it's just a matter of time before all the fish move to the top because there's a shortage on oxygen. But also, it looking cloudy doesn't help. This is the one pain point with the sponge filters that makes my eyes roll into the back of my head. But with this quick fix, I've got no complaints. By just walking up to my gang valve with a syringe in my hand and just squirting water into the tube right there, in front of the fish tank, in front of the fish. BioLoad inside the tank seems to play a part in how often you have to squeeze clean the sponge itself, but it just seems like no matter what, good old bacteria and other mold is going to consistently clog these air tubes no matter the BioLoad. But I guess that's what I've got. I've mentioned this technique in one other video. It's very deep in a feeding tour. I wanted to let y'all know about this massive pain point that I was able to smooth over. And if y'all think about me once when you're clearing your sponge filter, well, then it was all worth it. Until next time, fish keepers. Until next time.
Hop,